Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Versus Games January League Cup here in Oviedo, Florida. We are getting set for round number 2 here at Versus Games. I'm Joe Carlino, once again joined by Adit Selvaraj. And Adit, we just had a really fire first round for the stream for a 10-year anniversary celebration.
I know. If you told me that I would be seeing Dodrio on a VGC stream...
I would probably have to get you in for a CAT scan.
Possibly, yeah.
Maybe a CAT scan, a Baker Act, maybe a straight jacket. Some things. There.
But we saw it.
We did see it, and then it was gone.
Right, absolutely.
So unfortunately, Dodrio, it came, it saw, it went. It's done.
It came, it saw, it didn't conquer.
It did not conquer, which is unfortunate. But it could potentially conquer at San Antonio next week.
We'll see.
We will be watching with bated breath how Jonathan Martin performs with Dodrio, because that hubris got him.
Right. Yes, it's going to be interesting to see if he can follow up his his day 2 performance in Toronto with a day 2 in San Antonio. We'll have to see.
That would be impressive if he day 2's back-to-back regionals, because honestly, as a Worlds competitor who has gone before, what is your goal in terms of competing? Do you want, naturally winning is the ultimate goal, but do you have like a set goal? Like, do you have like a record that you always want to go for, or is there anything else that you want?
You mean like me as of now? I want to make day 2 always whenever I go. Right now, I feel like Worlds invites are really for the people who are like, they're very dedicated. 75 players is it's considering how much people play, it's an interesting bar, but it's something that we as a player base we have to deal with. And Worlds is still a fun experience even if you do not qualify. I would highly recommend anybody to go as a spectator. I honestly wanted to spectate this year, but I have a wedding and I need to save these. A wedding I have to attend and I have to save these vacation days, but I highly recommend anyone who's interested to just go spectate Worlds. It's such a fun experience. It might even motivate you to try reaching that level. I know whenever I spectated Worlds 2014, I got my first top 8 at a regional in 2015. It really just lights that fire in you.
And that's all you can hope for as a competitor. Like, for somebody like me, I've yet to day 2. I've been right on the cusp in those winning in rounds in 3 of these 6 events that I've actually competed in. And it happens, because those are the best of the best that are trying to get to day number 2.
Right. It's a great feeling when you day 2. And for what it's worth, I think you're going to make it into day 2 very soon at the next event you go to.
Fingers crossed on that, but we can see if our players here today are going to get to the top cut of the Versus Games League Cup. We have Austin Presti versus Elijah Tatum.
Yes, these are 2 very exciting teams. We see the ubiquitous Qian Pao Dragon Knight combination that Elijah is known for using, with some unfamiliar friends on that composition like Raging Bolt and Urshifu. Austin Presti looks like he's using the prototypical Zamazenta team, popularized by player Tomoyuki Yoshimura, also known as Snow, but replaced the Amoonguss with a Grimmsnarl. So we'll have to see how this change fares for Austin.
It actually will be interesting to see how Austin has adapted that team. But as we get into the actual team compositions of our 2 trainers here in round number 2, we do see Austin Presti. As you mentioned, he does have that Zamazenta here. What is important to note here is that you see Ironhead on the screen. When you do a team submission in the official tournament creator, you have to put Ironhead. Behemoth Bash is automatically changed when you give Zamazenta that Rusted Shield item. So Ironhead turns into Behemoth Bash. If we see Heavy Slam, then we have a little bit of a miscellaneous error there.
Right.
But if it's Ironhead and we see Behemoth Bash, we know it was Ironhead all along. That is a little quirk in the system with Zamazenta and Zacian for that matter.
Right.
But we also see this is an Assault Vest Raging Bull with Terra Electric and 3 electric type moves. Choice Scarf Chiyu with Booster Energy Flutter Mane. So you can go for Icy Wind and Heat Wave to really get major damage.
And
Grimmsnarl with the Prankster Covert Cloak, very interesting.
Right.
And a Terra Ground Life Orb Rillaboom?
Absolutely trying to make the most out of that damage. One thing I'd like to note is the Terra Normal on Fluttermane, really putting Austin in a good position if Elijah really leans into that Calyrex Shadow Rider. Interesting to note that Elijah's Calyrex Shadow Rider, as you can see on the screen, is also a normal type 2, having moves like Astral Barrage, Pollen Puff, and Psychic, opting for no boosting moves like we saw in the last round.
And we also see that the Raging Bolt is the same on both sides. It is Assault Vest Terra Electric with 3 electric moves. We see Urshifu Single Strike there with 4 attacks with that Choice Scarf. We see Dragonite and Chien-Pao. We've all been the victim of a Chien-Pao Dragonite Extreme Speed run roughshod on us.
Oh, absolutely.
But this is also very unique. Galarian Wheezing on the side of Elijah Tatum, because Neutralizing Gas will negate every ability on Austin Presti's side. The only ability it does not negate is Calyrex Shadow Rider.
That's healthy Pokemon, like you said.
It's very healthy to have a Pokemon on your side that just shudders every ability except your own.
It's just very, very smart team building by Elijah and all of the players who are using Calyrex Wheezing. But as you can see, something very interesting is we see the Urshifu Single Strike is the one holding the Choice Scarf. Typically in the past, we've seen Urshifu Rapid Strike hold the Choice Scarf, but we see Urshifu Single Strike. So this should be very interesting in impacting this match.
And we're going to get into round number 2 here very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. Elijah Tatum and Austin Presti, both of these trainers are 1-0. Which Generation 8 restricted Pokemon is going to go to 2-0? Is it going to be Calyrex Shadow or is it going to be Zamazenta? And we're going to see Elijah lead with that Dragonite Chien-Pao versus the Grimmsnarl and Zamazenta Crown.
Right, and getting that defense boost thanks to that Dauntless Shield ability really going to be paying off dividends. Interesting that Chien-Pao on Elijah's team has that Sacred Sword, being able to negate that +1 boost. So,
and we do see that it is Body Press on the Zamazenta, but it also is Behemoth Bash, so we do know it was Iron Head all along.
Right.
So Behemoth Bash, honestly, it still does good damage, in my opinion. I know Heavy Slam is nice for the Fluttermanes, but, you know, Behemoth Bash is Behemoth Bash. You're bashing a Fluttermane, you're not slamming.
Right. I think it's very interesting that Austin decided to go for Behemoth Bash.
We do see an Extreme Speed Choice Band into the Grimmsnarl. That did big damage, but in comes that Thunder Wave into Dragonite, paralyzing it for the remainder of this battle. And what did this Chien-Pao end up going for? It went for Sacred Sword into this Zamazenta, which protects itself and keeps its defense boost for this turn. Because, as we know, Adit, in the change between Generations 8 and 9, between Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet, Zamazenta and Zacian's abilities of Intrepid Sword and Dauntless Shield, they used to activate every single time they went onto the battlefield. Now, the second that Zamazenta switches out, it loses that boost, but we do see the Dragonite gets paralyzed while trying to go for that Extreme Speed. Reflect comes out, and in comes Sacred Sword into the Chien-Pao. Good damage through the Reflect into Zamazenta, but more importantly, the Body Press, and that did just about 50%, Adit.
Right, and what's interesting is that Sword of Ruin does not affect Zamazenta's the damage from Body Press. It still keeps its own defense stat.
Wow, that's actually something to note. But it remains to be seen what happens here as Extreme Speed comes out on Dragonite. It will knock out the Grimmsnarl through that Reflect due to the Choice Band on the Sword of Ruin, but in comes the Chen Pao once again with that Sacred Sword. Super effective damage once again into the Zamazenta and bringing it just above 25%. But more importantly, in comes a body press, 4 times super effective into the Chen Pao and bringing it down to its focus sash.
With a critical hit, not that it mattered anyway.
It might have mattered a little bit. Maybe a little.
And we see Austin's back-to Pokemon are Fluttermane and Raging Bolt. So we'll have to see what happens here. I think Fluttermane is a great switch in for right now, having moves that can affect both sides, both Pokemon. Icy Wind is actually very good here.
It is very good here, but also the Dazzling Gleam is really good. However, Chen Pao on Elijah's side does have access to Sucker Punch, and even if Fluttermane terrestrializes into a Terra Normal, it's still going to take big damage, but then it opens itself up to the extreme speed from the Dragonite, which is also going to do big damage, even with Reflecta.
Right, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what Elijah goes for. That extreme speed into Zamazenta does little to no damage.
And the Sucker Punch comes out and does just under 50% to the Fluttermane, but a Dazzling Gleam comes out, and Chen Pao and Dragonite both go down here. So now Zamazenta and Fluttermane are on the field, with that Fluttermane having its booster energy speed activated.
Right, and I think that Reflect from Austin's side paying dividends against the very physical lead of Elijah.
And we do see Elijah bring Raging Bolt out here and Calyrex. So Calyrex, Shadow Rider, and Raging Bolt are the last 2 Pokemon for Elijah here. This is an Assault Vest Raging Bolt, but the Calyrex, as we saw in round number 1, Adit, that was Covert Cloak. This one's Spell Tag, so Icy Wind will lower the speed of that Calyrex Shadow Rider.
Right, now this is going to be very interesting to see if what Austin does. I think we see Austin locking in a body press onto that Raging Bolt, not fearing a Thunderclap. We'll have to see if Zamazenta is sturdy enough to survive a Thunderclap from such a strong Pokemon like Raging Bolt, even with the light screen up.
It would be very interesting to see what happens here, as Austin is even considering calling the Terra Normal here. And we do see a terrestrialization on the side of Elijah Tatum. Is it the Calyrex? No, it is the Raging Bolt. Terrestrializing into an electric type and removing its weakness to Fairy, but more importantly, it keeps the immunity to that body press. As a Thunderclap comes out here, Terra Electric boosted into the Fluttermane, and it knocks out Fluttermane here. So Fluttermane is down. The Calyrex is going to be faster than the Zamazenta here, going for Psychic, a single target attack that does neutral damage into the Zamazenta, knocking it out and getting that Grim Neigh boost.
Right, I think Elijah has really turned this game around, using that Terra Electric to very effectively just squeeze every last bit of damage onto that Fluttermane.
And more importantly, this Raging Bolt on Austin's side is also, the Terra Electric as well. So you could go for something like a Terra Electric Electro Web. But again, this Calyrex is already at +1, and Astro Barrage will be a single target attack now instead of a spread move off that base 165 special attack.
And the spell tag, so this is going to be doing so much damage to whatever, to Raging Bolt.
And there's no light screen too, it only got a Reflecta.
Yes, this is very good playing by Elijah.
As we do see Austin activate his Terra Orb onto his Raging Bolt. Both Raging Bolts have terrestrialized into the electric type to gain even more damage on their electric type attacks by virtue of them already being electric types prior to terrestrializing. As we see, also Austin's Raging Bolt looks to be faster than Calyrex. A critical hit Thunderclap.
It just wasn't enough.
Just wasn't enough. Astro Barrage comes out into Raging Bolt and does over 75%. Meanwhile, the Electro Web comes out, and this is a single target Electro Web and doesn't knock out the Raging Bolt, but more importantly, lowers the speed, and suddenly Elijah's Raging Bolt can go for a Thunderclap here and probably knock out Austin's Raging Bolt, and that would give him game number 1 of this set.
Right, I think really like that Electro Whip play by Elijah, just ensuring the Thunderclap endgames are won by.
But very interestingly, Elijah didn't go for the Thunderclap. He let his Calyrex go down here to the Thunderclap. However, Raging Bolt still has an ability to attack. It just goes for a Dragon Pulse and knocks out the Raging Bolt. So Elijah is willing to sacrifice his restricted Pokemon there at the end of game number 1, but it really didn't affect the overall outcome of the game. Elijah takes game number 1.
Right, excellently played by Elijah. We'll have to see what adaptations Austin makes. Maybe really leaning into that Choice Scarf Chi-Yu, or maybe even bringing some of his other Pokemon like Rillaboom, just for Fake Out.
And that could be that could actually be an option here, because Chi-Yu with that Choice Scarf, yes, it will lock itself into the first attack it chooses, but you bring Chi-Yu and something like Flutter Mane as a lead, you can go for Dazzling Gleam and Snarl. In theory, you do big damage, and you're essentially forcing Elijah's hand with the Dragonite. Do you want to risk a super effective Fairy type move, a super effective Ice type move, or a super effective Fire type move?
Right, and most notably, Chi-Yu on Austin's side is that Terra Ghost being able to inoculate itself from a Terra Normal Extreme Speed if Austin chooses to go to do so. Also, having Grimmsnarl's Reflect maybe artificially increase Chi-Yu's bulk. We'll have to see how this Chi-Yu is trained if Austin decides to bring it.
It would be interesting to see if Austin does end up bringing the Chi-Yu alongside his Flutter Mane, because Flutter Mane was a good bring for this battle by having that booster energy to ensure that it's faster than Calyrex Shadow Rider, Adit.
Right. Yes, I think that Flutter Mane was an excellent choice, but we have to see what Austin will do.
Exactly, and honestly, it feels like Zamazenta, like we all know how Zacian was back in Sword and Shield, where it could lead, it could be in the back. It feels like maybe Zamazenta flipped the script between generations 8 and 9. It can either be like Zacian, where it could lead, or in the back. Zacian, it feels like it has to be in the back.
Yes, it's a very interesting how the change to the Intrepid Sword and Dauntless Shield abilities have affected how these Mons playstyle. As somebody who likes the design of Zacian, I actually really kind of hope that we see a return of the Gen 8 style of Intrepid Sword and Dauntless Shield. But
that would be insane, but we are getting into game number 2 here. Elijah has opted to keep his same lead, and so does Austin. We have the same leads from game number 2 of Chien-Pao and Dragonite for Elijah, and Grimmsnarl and Zamazenta for Austin.
Right, now we'll have to see. We do know that Dragonite's Extreme Speed is pretty close to knocking Grimmsnarl out. Not enough, though, but we'll have to see if Thunder Wave is the right choice here, such as last time.
But more importantly, we also have to keep in mind that Dragonite does have access to Stomping Tantrum, which is a super effective attack into the Zamazenta, but also Zamazenta, if it terastallizes, it becomes a Dragon type, and suddenly the Zamazenta is weak to Ice Spinner.
Right, and
we see a Sacred Sword doing big damage, and a Body Press coming out into the Chien-Pao here, bringing it down to Focus Sash on the first turn. Meanwhile, what did this Grimmsnarl end up going for? I believe it went for a foul play, and Austin has decided, I want that Chien-Pao off this field as quick as I possibly can.
Right, I really think that was a very smart term from Austin, making sure that Chien-Pao is not able to threaten the Pokemon in the back with moves such as Sucker Punch or even that Sacred Sword.
And in comes the Calyrex Shadow Rider here for Elijah, and now it puts Austin in a very unique position here. Do I go for the Wide Guard for the potential Astral Barrage, or do I go for something like a Behemoth Bash into the Dragonite, or do I go for the Behemoth Bash into the Calyrex and get something like a Light Screen up here?
Right, and we see that unlike the game last time, we see that Elijah's Calyrex Shadow Rider is the Terra Normal, meaning it cannot protect itself from attacks like Thunder Wave. So We'll have to see if Grimmsnarl can make it through this turn.
It will be very close to see if it makes it through this turn, but we're going to find out very soon because the Grimmsnarl has activated its Terra Orb. Austin has decided to terrestrialize this Grimmsnarl, and Grimmsnarl is no longer a Dark and Fairy type, but it is a pure Steel type.
Right, that seems like it will do very well into Elijah's Choice Band Dragonite. We'll have to see if it is able to hang on.
We will see here, but what did the Calyrex go for here as we see the Extreme Speed come out, and it does allow Grimmsnarl to survive. The Thunder Wave coming out into the Calyrex here and paralyzing the Calyrex, and suddenly Calyrex is slower than the Zamazenta.
Right, this was an excellent turn by Austin.
And meanwhile, in comes the Astral Barrage here, and it does knock out that Grimmsnarl. So even though Grimmsnarl got the paralysis off and managed to use the terrestrialization, it goes down, and Calyrex is now +1 special attack with the ability of the Grimne. However, Austin's still in a good spot here because as we see, Fluttermane comes out here and activates that booster energy. Fluttermane, even without the paralysis on Calyrex Shadow Rider, it is now the fastest Pokemon on this field with Dragonite locked into Extreme Speed.
Right. This is just such a great position for Austin to be in. We'll have to see if he can really take advantage of this board position.
It's going to be very unique to see what happens here because the Fluttermane is in a very advantageous position because by virtue of it being a Ghost type, it is immune to those extreme speeds from Dragonite, and even with the Choice Band, Dragonite doesn't do the greatest amount of damage to a +1 Zamazenta.
Right, and we'll have to see if Austin is able to pin Calyrex Shadow with a combination of Body Press and Shadow Ball.
Well, we see a Protect come out on the side of Calyrex here as Extreme Speed comes out into Zamazenta, and it just bounced off.
Right, this is just such a great position for Austin. Really, really limiting options that his opponent can go for. We'll have to see if Dragonite elects to switch out. But as of now, it seems like Austin is just in such a good position.
Honestly, he is in an excellent position here because if Calyrex protects itself again, then yes, it does avoid the damage here, but it still doesn't want to take any damage from Fluttermane at 4 times super effective with that Shadow Ball, or if it terrestrializes, a +1 Body Press.
Yes. This is why I really like Austin's play right now. Really just putting that Calyrex Shadow between a rock and a hard place. Now, just keeping Fluttermane immune to any extreme speeds, having a Zamazenta that can resist and maybe take like 2 or 3 more extreme speeds. But we see Dragonite switch out into Raging Bolt.
So Raging Bolt is the Pokemon of choice here as the Fluttermane gets that Shadow Ball off here. This is 4 times super effective into the Calyrex Shadow Rider, and Calyrex goes down to the 1-hit knockout.
Right, and that is so huge, getting rid of the opponent's restricted. Body Press should be doing a lot to this Raging Bolt too.
Well over 50%. That is huge damage. But in comes the Dragonite once again to reset the Choice Band item that is on the Dragonite here. And now it puts Austin in a very unique position alongside that Fluttermane because in theory, Dragonite can Terra Normal and go for an attack, but Raging Bolt has access to that Thunderclap, which is a neutral target right now on the Zamazenta by virtue of Electric on Fighting and Steel. If the Zamazenta terrestrializes into a Dragon type, suddenly that neutrality turns into a resistance, but Extreme Speed becomes a neutrality.
Yes, it's going to be very interesting to see. But we see that Grimmsnarl has already used the terrestrialization though. So,
oh, I forgot about the terrestrialization on Grimmsnarl there. So now Raging Bolt terrestrializes into an Electric type here and goes after a Fluttermane tries to opt for a Protect here to try to scout what the Dragonite ends up going for as Thunderclap comes out, and it did target the Zamazenta, so Zamazenta goes down.
And we'll just have to see what this Dragonite locks into.
And it locks itself into Stomping Tantrum, a good choice so it doesn't have to worry about being immune to Flutter Mane's attacks here. But even more importantly, it does big damage into Raging Bolt.
Yes, I think that was a very smart lock-in. It covered for both Chi-Yu and Raging Bolt.
And also, key point to note, Adid, by virtue of Stomping Tantrum going through the Protect, that doubles its power to 150 on this next attack with that Choice Band.
Right, going for that Icy Wind, doing so much damage into the Dragonite. It's going to be interesting to see how Austin's Raging Bolt is trained.
It is a Dragon Pulse into the Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt survives, though. Stomping Tantrum Choice Banded damage. And the Raging Bolt survives. And in comes the Electro Web. And it missed the Flutter Mane.
This is absolutely huge for Austin.
Oh my god, it missed the Flutter Mane. That was huge.
It looks like Icy Wind will be able to pick up this Raging Bolt and do massive damage into that Dragonite, and we look like we're going into a Game 3.
We do look like it is going to be Game 3. This Thunderclap comes out into the Flutter Mane and does over 50%, but in comes that Icy Wind once again. It is super effective on the Dragonite, knocks out the Dragonite. Raging Bolt does barely survive. However, the Dragonite goes down, and Raging Bolt on Austin's side goes for that Dragon Pulse and will knock out Elijah's Dragon Pulse, and we are going to a Game 3.
Yes, this is very exciting. I will be very interested to see how Elijah adapts. Austin's adaptations felt correct. I'm very curious to see how Elijah will. It seems like both of them had a dominant game where one of them took each set fairly convincingly. So
honestly, you are correct, and that just showcases how successful Thunder Wave can be against the Calyrex Shadow Rider. Yes, Elijah does have actually, no, my mistake. Austin has the Flutter Mane with booster energy to ensure it's faster than the Calyrex Shadow Rider as long as it's still out on the field. But Thunder Wave puts you in an even more advantageous position, because even if you lose that booster energy, you're still faster than the Shadow Rider.
Right, I think that is very important. Thunder Wave on Flutter Mane is just such an excellent move. That speed, Thunder Wave in general is just an excellent move.
Of course, we have to focus. We have to worry about the 90% accuracy.
Right, it's not like Generation 5 or Generation 6 where Thunder Wave was 100% accurate.
But it's better than Will-O-Wisp.
Oh yeah,
It's better than Will-O-Wisp, 85% accurate, and it used to be 75% accurate.
Yeah, I'm glad we got that buff. We don't want to remember that world set.
Oh man, Aaron with the misses on the Will-O-Wisp. Although, in fairness, I've had some Incineroar Will-O-Wisp misses, and yeah, it's not fun to have a missed attack, especially one that lowers the power of physical attacks by 50%.
Right, it's such an impactful move.
It really is. But we're going to see game number 3 here from Austin Presti and Elijah Tatum here. One of these trainers is going to go to 2-0. And again, it could be 2 Calyrex Shadow Riders at 2-0, or it could be a Calyrex Shadow Rider and a Zamazenta.
Personally, as someone who used Zamazenta at Worlds, I hope that I'm hoping that Austin, is able to show out for the Shield Dogs. But we'll have to see. Both trainers locking in. They look really locked in and excited to play.
And we see it is Chien-Pao and Dragonite once again for Elijah. But meanwhile, you noticed it, Adid, on the team preview. Flutter Mane and Chi-Yu are on the field for Austin Presti here.
Yes, this is one of those really poetic moments, the ubiquitous Chien-Pao Dragonite combination versus ubiquitous Flutter Mane and Chi-Yu combination. So we'll have to see how this goes.
We really will have to see how this goes, because Flutter Mane is the fastest Pokemon on the field, and depending on how the Chi-Yu is trained, it could theoretically be faster than the Calyrex Shadow Rider without an Icy Wind speed drop.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see if it can survive an extreme speed from that Dragonite.
We are going to see a Terastallization come out on the side of Elijah Tatum here. His Terra Orb is activating. Dragonite is saying, if you like it, then you should have put a ring on it, because that is a giant ring on top of Dragonite's head for a normal type Terastallization.
Yes, and an excellent choice of Terastallization. I really like the pin of this Dragonite Qian Pao being able. Yeah, we see.
And they see a one-hit knockout into the Chi Yu.
Right, and it wasn't even safe for.
And a Sucker Punch coming out as well in the Chen Pao, which does big damage into Flutter Mane. But more importantly, in comes the Dazzling Gleam on this Flutter Mane, and it doesn't even bring Chen Pao down to its Focus Sash.
Yeah, it's just very excellent targeting by Elijah, knowing that Chi-Yu is Terra Ghost, being able to pin that slot with a Sucker Punch and an Extreme Speed.
And now it remains to be seen how Austin's going to adapt to that, because he just lost his Chi-Yu, one of his top attacking Pokemon that also benefited Flutter Mane with the Beads of Ruin, lowering the special defense by 25%. As we do see Dragonite making a switch out here on the side of Elijah, and in comes that Calyrex. So depending on what the Chen Pao opted for here, it could go for a Sucker Punch or it could go for a Sacred Sword.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
As you do see a Protect come out on the side of Flutter Mane here, potentially going for that Sucker Punch. And it is a Sucker Punch into the Flutter Mane slot here. But meanwhile, the Body Press comes out and knocks out the Chen Pao. So Chen Pao is down, Chi-Yu is down. Both Treasures of Ruin are down in the first couple of turns of game number 3.
Yes, it's most notably the Restricteds are still around, but we do see Elijah's second Restricted, that Raging Bolt, so strong with all of those stats, putting itself. Thunderclap is in a really good position to knock out this very low HP Flutter Mane. I think Elijah has put himself in such an excellent position. We'll have to see if he can make it out.
It would be interesting to see what happens here, because the Calyrex has not gotten any special attack boost by virtue of its Grim Neigh ability. But I don't know how much Behemoth Bash will do to this Calyrex Shadow Rider if it lands.
Yeah, most notably, it will be doing an okay amount to that. We don't know if it's going to be stronger than Heavy Slam. I'm curious to see how Behemoth Bash does. We see a single target light, Spell Tag boosted Astral Barrage, doing so much damage on the Zamazenta.
Well over 60%, maybe even 70%. Here comes that Behemoth Bash into Calyrex Shadow at 50%. Modest. That's modest damage.
Right. Most notably, Austin does have his Terastallization still available, so maybe he will be able to squeeze out every bit of damage from this Raging Bolt with that Terra Electric.
There is the potential of that. However, Elijah still has Dragonite in the back to have the extreme speed advantage over Austin's side. However, with the Calyrex under 50%, you could make that Thunderclap prediction and go for something like a Protect and just stall out a turn.
Possibly. Or if Austin is thinking about maybe even pressing like moves like Electro Web to predict in Dragonite switch in, but we don't see Dragonite switching out.
And we do see a Protect come out on the side of Calyrex here to protect itself from any damage this turn, as Thunderclap comes out and it will fail. So now it remains to be seen, where did the Body Press go for? Into the Raging Bolt, over 50%, and a Thunderbolt going into the Zamazenta, which knocks it out.
Yes, excellent turn from Elijah there, and I believe we are on Austin's final Pokemon. Elijah has been playing this so excellently. Even with the Thunderclap knocking out Calyrex, Elijah is just in such a good position.
As in comes that Thunderclap, and it will knock out the Calyrex on this turn and making it go down. So now all that's left is the Dragonite and the Raging Bolt. In comes this Raging Bolt Dragon Pulse. Not super effective. It does neutral damage here, but that damage looks to be just enough. However, in comes the Choice Band Terra Normal Dragonite. This is going to be very close.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see if Dragonite can pick up the KO. Maybe a combination of Extreme Speed Thunderclap is just enough to get there.
We do see the Extreme Speed, and it does just enough. In comes Electro Web, and it knocks out the Raging Bolt. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Elijah Tatum, side with that Dragonite and Chen Pao, and the Calyrex Shadow Rider, wins the set and advances to 2-0 here at the Oviedo League Cup.
Right, excellent play by both sides. It just seemed like Elijah was able to really leverage that Qian Pao Dragonite combination. It's like Regulation E hasn't even left.
Regulation E, Regulation D, Regulation C,
Regulation F.
Regulation H. Wait, no, that was Sneasler. But no, like Elijah just played that absolutely incredible and saving the terrestrialization on Dragonite for game 3 and just going absolutely incredible with that. My condolences to the Fish, though. My condolences to Chi Yu, because it was in a very unwinnable position there, because I feel like that Sucker Punch was going into Chi Yu if it terrestrialized.
Right, yes, and that's one of the things I pointed out. That's why I really like that Qian Pao Dragonite combination, really being able to pin Chi Yu's Terra Ghost if it chooses to go for that.
And how about Zamazenta as well? Going for that Behemoth Bash. It did over 50% to Calyrex Shadow Rider, but now it remains to be seen. Was Behemoth Bash the right choice, or was it Heavy Slam?
I personally really would have loved to see Heavy Slam, but, you know, I'm not the one playing, so...
Well, I'm not the one playing either. And then the Raging Bolts, it was just a matter of which Raging Bolt was faster, which one had the ability to do more damage in the end game, but it was all about that Dragonite and showcasing a combination or a core that we saw back in Regulation C, and, well, it's Regulation G and it's still working.
Right, yes. Really lovely to see Qian Pao Dragonite back after all this time. Interesting to see. Nice that it's wearing its choice band instead of that loaded dice from last regulation.
Oh, the loaded dice scale shot sets. With Haze, too. Some of them ran Haze.
Yeah, or Tailwind like me.
Or Tailwind.
I really like Tailwind, but...
Yeah, I mean, Tailwind's fun because you get the +1 Tailwind, so it's almost like a prankster.
Oh, yeah. It's like we have Tornadus at home.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Tornadus at home. And I'm actually curious if Tornadus is being used in this tournament.
We'll have to see the usage stats. I know Tornadus did win the first Regulation H Victory Road. No, the third Regulation H. G, sorry. I'm sorry. I have not played this game in a serious capacity since Regulation H, but...
Well, we survived Sneasler. We survived the Dire Claws.
I mean, no, that's what I was trying to get to. The team that won the third Victory Road championships, you know the Hoj brothers, right?
Yeah, Frederick and that.
Yes, he won with Tornadus and...
Gunk Shot Sneasler.
Yes.
So, that just goes to show you, Dire Claw bad, Gunk Shot good.
Right, and I believe we saw that on Birmingham stream yesterday with Anthony Liuzio from France battling Adrian Zoro from Spain. Unfortunately, Anthony did not make it into day 2 of the competition, but you know, Adrian did, and even though Anthony won that match, it's still really interesting to see how Sneasler was able to pin a lot of pieces of that Kyogre balance team Adrian was using.
Exactly, and you actually mentioned it, Adi, that you like using Zamazenta. I've been Koraidon main. I'm actually curious how many of each of those restricted Pokemon are in this tournament today.
Right, I'm really excited to see what restricted is coming up on top today. I've actually been a huge fan of Koraidon lately too, and we see the usage stats here. Calyrex Shadow.
25%, a quarter of the players are running Calyrex Shadow Rider.
Right, that's just so interesting. We see Calyrex Shadow Rider, Zamazenta, Kyogre, Miraidon, Terapagos, Groudon.
2 Ice Riders and a Cura.
Oh.
White Curum? Wow. So we actually just got that from our production team, ladies and gentlemen, that we have 2 Ice Riders and a White Curum. And something tells me I know what's being paired with that White Curum. I think it's an Abomasnow.
Really?
No, everybody knows it's a Alolan Ninetales.
Oh yeah, no, we love Alolan Ninetales.
In all fairness, I prefer Alolan Ninetales to Cantonian Ninetales.
Oh, you know, I like them both, but you know, we haven't had Ninetales in VGC since 2013, like the regular Ninetales. I believe it got top 8 at the German Nationals in 2013 by a player who unfortunately doesn't play anymore, but he got top 8 at Worlds in 2015, Lajo. A really great German player. But I think something that's really interesting is Florida, really well-known Florida players known for using Calyrex Ice, and we do not even see it on the usage graphic.
We don't see it, but we do see two of the weathers that Florida is known for. Extreme sunlight and heat in Groudon, and heavy rain in Kyogre.
And like you said, Tornadus is being used at that tournament, at this tournament with 17.31 usage.
But look at who is at the top.
Fluttermane.
The queen herself, Fluttermane. Rounded out by the Urshifu Rapid Strike, Rillaboom, Incineroar, and Raging Bolt. Wait a second. Are we doing the Wolf Worlds video right now? Are we doing the Wolf Worlds video? Because, I mean, there's Urshifu, there's Rillaboom, there's Incineroar, there's Raging Bolt, Calyrex Shadow Rider is the leading restricted Pokemon, and a Farigiraf.
Yeah, we just need to move Farigiraf a little bit. We just need to move Farigiraf where Fluttermane is, and then we have the Wolf team in top usage.
That would be absolutely incredible if that were to happen. I mean, Farigiraf probably could maybe pass Amoonguss.
Yeah, possibly. And if you haven't watched the Wolf video yet, highly recommend it. Even worth watching it with your VGC friends. Maybe even make a night out of it. It's 2 hours and 30 minutes of excellent production, just excellent.
I would agree.
Storytelling.
His team did a phenomenal job of that. We're not going to spoil anything about that video. All we're going to say, ladies and gentlemen, is if you have not seen it, go give it a watch, because it's a good tournament video. I mean, all of his tournament videos are good, but our tournaments are just as well.
Yeah. Just major respect to Wolf and his team for putting out such strong content. There are other VGC, this has never been... This has been the best time to get in the VGC I've seen ever.
Exactly. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with round 3 here at the Versus Games League Cup in Oviedo, Florida.